When I inherited my grandfather's $20 million company, I quietly moved it into a trust just in case. Then, my brother showed up with Mom. When my grandfather died, I inherited his $20 million company, and his warning, "Your family loves money more than blood. Protect what's yours." So I moved everything into a secret trust, quietly, legally, completely. Last week, my brother and my mother came smiling, papers in hand. "We had the company signed into my name," he sneered. "You're out by Wednesday." I didn't argue. I simply nodded and watched them walk away, laughing. 2 days later, they returned, with thugs. My own brother ordered them to drag me out of my office. But when they kicked the door open, they froze. Because sitting across the room was Mr. Dale, my grandfather's old lawyer, and the man now holding the Anderson Trust activation file. He smiled coldly. "By signing those forged papers," he said, "you just triggered Clause 17, full forfeiture. Every asset, every account, every share is now permanently locked in the heir's trust." Meaning, he looked straight at me. "They just handed everything back to you." Their laughter died instantly. My mother's face collapsed. My brother's hands shook. I stood, slow and calm. "Grandfather told me greed would eat you alive. I just never thought I'd get front row seats." As security escorted them out, I walked to the window, watching their car disappear down the drive. Then my phone buzzed. An alert. Their accounts? Frozen. Their luxury home? Foreclosed. Their names? Erased from every company record. I smiled. They thought they took everything, but all they did was dig their own grave. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please, subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together, we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. The rain had stopped, but the sky still looked bruised. Dark clouds hung low over the Anderson estate like they were in mourning too. Inside the grand marble hall, everything gleamed. Silver trays, tall candles, people dressed in black that looked too polished to be grieving. Tessa stood by the coffin, her hands folded tightly. She could still smell her grandfather's cologne faintly on the wood, that warm cedar scent that had always made her feel safe. Now it just made her throat hurt. She didn't cry, not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't. Not here, not in front of them. Her mother's voice carried through the room, smooth and cold as a blade. "My father believed in family, in unity, in loyalty, and it's our duty now to carry his legacy, together." People nodded, murmuring soft condolences. It sounded rehearsed. Tessa looked up. Evelyn Anderson, the woman who raised her, looked flawless as always. Perfect hair, perfect pearls, perfect fake grief. When the last mourner stepped away from the coffin, Evelyn leaned close. Her breath brushed against Tessa's ear. "He should have left it to me," she whispered. "You'll lose it soon enough." Tessa blinked, frozen. The words landed like a slap. Evelyn didn't wait for an answer. She simply turned, gliding toward the next group of guests, smiling like a queen holding court. Tessa stared down at the coffin, whispering under her breath, "You were right, Grandpa. They don't even wait until the dirt's cold." Behind her, laughter broke out near the bar. Her brother Dylan already had a drink in hand. He was surrounded by cousins and old business partners, playing the grieving air with a whiskey in one hand and a smirk on his face. When he saw Tessa, his grin widened. "Hey, look who finally showed up," he said loudly. "The prodigal granddaughter. Guess the golden girl made it after all." "Knock it off, Dylan," she muttered. "Why?" "It's true. You vanished for 3 years. No calls, no visits, nothing. Then the old man dies and suddenly you remember the family name?" "I was finishing school." He understood. "Yeah," Dylan said, swirling his drink. "He always had a soft spot for you." Never could see you for what you really are. Tessa stared at him. And what's that? He smiled thinly. A nobody who got lucky. Evelyn appeared beside him then, slipping an arm around his shoulders. Her diamond bracelet sparkled under the chandelier. Don't bother with her, darling, she said smoothly. She'll be out of our hair soon enough. The words burned. Tessa turned away before she said something she'd regret. The will reading was later that afternoon at her grandfather's old office downtown. The lawyer's nameplate on the door still read, Mr. Dale, senior partner. He'd known her grandfather for 40 years, and his eyes softened when he saw Tessa enter. Miss Anderson, he said gently, your grandfather thought highly of you. He was everything, she said quietly. Please, just read it. The rest of the family filed in, whispering and glaring. Evelyn sat with her back straight, lips tight. Dylan slouched beside her, tapping his foot impatiently. Mr. Dale cleared his throat and began. He read through a few formalities, properties, vehicles, art pieces. Then came the part everyone was waiting for. And finally, Mr. Dale said, adjusting his glasses, regarding Anderson Holdings Incorporated and all subsidiary companies. The room went silent. I, Thomas Anderson, hereby grant 100% control and ownership of Anderson Holdings to my granddaughter, Tessa Jane Anderson, effective immediately. For a moment, no one moved, no one breathed. Then Evelyn stood so fast her chair screeched backward. That's absurd, she snapped. He wasn't in his right mind. The will was verified and notarized 6 months ago, Mr. Dale said calmly. Every clause was reviewed. No, she hissed, voice shaking. That company is mine. I built it with him. You think I'll stand by while she... Mother. Tessa's voice was soft but steady. It's done. Dylan laughed, a short, bitter sound. You? Running a company? That's the joke of the year. Maybe, Tessa said quietly, but it's not your joke to tell. Evelyn's face flushed red. She grabbed her purse, stood and said, Enjoy it while it lasts. You won't keep it for long. They left together, slamming the door behind them. Mr. Dale exhaled, rubbing his temples. Miss Anderson, forgive my bluntness, but your family is about to make your life very difficult. Tessa looked at him, calm but pale. I know. Your grandfather expected this. He left instructions for you. He reached into his briefcase and handed her a sealed envelope. The handwriting on the front stopped her heart. For Tessa. Only when I'm gone. That night, the mansion was quiet. The guests had gone home. The housekeeper had retired. Even the clocks seemed to tick softer, like they were waiting. Tessa sat in her grandfather's old study. His chair still smelled faintly of cigar smoke and leather. She turned the envelope over in her hands for a long time before she finally broke the seal. Inside was a single handwritten note. They love money more than blood. Protect what's yours. Trust no signature but your own. She read it twice, then a third time, her chest tightening. There was a second sheet beneath it, a list of names, lawyers, bankers. One name was underlined twice, Mr. Dale. Tessa stared at it for a moment, then picked up her phone. Her voice was low, steady, controlled. Mr. Dale. It's Tessa. I need to activate something. There was a pause. Then his voice came through, calm but sharp. The Anderson Trust? Yes, exactly like he planned. I'll handle it discreetly. But you mustn't tell anyone, not even close friends. I don't have any left, she said softly. The next evening, the Anderson family hosted what Evelyn called a farewell dinner. It was supposed to honor her father's memory. In truth, it felt like a show. Waiters in black suits, champagne, laughing guests, and Evelyn, smiling wider than ever. Tessa tried to stay quiet, seated at the end of the long dining table. Her mother's laughter rang louder than the music. To my father, Evelyn announced, glass raised. A man who believed in tradition, in family, and in responsibility. We'll do everything in our power to honor him. The guests applauded politely. Then Evelyn turned to Tessa, eyes bright with malice. You must be proud, dear. Our little Tessa, the new head of Anderson Holdings. She paused, pretending to think. Tell us, darling, do you even know what the company does? Soft chuckles rippled around the table. Tessa looked down, her fork still. We build housing, affordable units for veterans and families. Grandpa's vision was, Don't recite the brochure, Evelyn snapped. I asked if you know what it takes to run it. Payroll, investors, contracts, real people's livelihoods. You think reading bedtime stories in college prepared you for that? The room went silent. Tessa felt her face heat up, but she forced a calm tone. Maybe not. But I'll learn. Evelyn smirked. Learn? The world doesn't wait for little girls to learn, sweetheart. Dylan laughed from across the table. She's right, Tess. You'll last maybe a week before you run crying back home. Tessa clenched her jaw. This is my home. Not for long, Dylan said, grinning. Trust me. He raised his glass toward her and then, slowly, deliberately, tipped it forward. Red wine spilled across the tablecloth, splashing onto Tessa's pale dress. Oops, he said, smirking. Guess you're not just inexperienced, you're clumsy too. The guests gasped softly. Evelyn didn't flinch. Don't just sit there, she said coldly. Go change. You're embarrassing yourself. Tessa stood, shaking, but kept her voice low. You've embarrassed this family for years, Mother. Maybe it's time someone fixed that. The silence that followed was heavy and sharp. Evelyn smiled thinly. Oh, honey, she said. You don't fix families. You survive them. Tessa left the room, her heart pounding. She changed into a simple black dress and stood by her grandfather's portrait in the hallway. His eyes seemed to follow her, wise and sad. You saw this coming, didn't you? She whispered. You knew they'd try to tear it apart. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A message from Mr. Dale. It's done. Every asset moved, every share secure. They can't touch it. Tessa exhaled shakily, looking back toward the dining room where laughter had resumed. They thought she was broken. They thought she was weak. They had no idea she'd already locked them out. Tessa stayed in the hallway long after the laughter faded. She could still hear her mother's voice carrying through the open doors. Smooth, commanding, confident. The same tone that used to make Tessa shrink as a child. She hated how easily Evelyn could twist people around her. Even now, surrounded by guests, she was the star. The grieving daughter, the gracious hostess, the perfect image of class and control. Tessa had spent her whole life trying to earn her approval. But tonight, something in her finally broke. She didn't want Evelyn's approval anymore. She wanted her respect, or nothing at all. She slipped outside for air. The night was cool, quiet except for the faint hum of cars passing the distant gates. The Anderson estate was massive, 12 acres of trimmed hedges, fountains, and marble statues. But it felt empty. Her grandfather used to walk these gardens with her when she was little. He'd stop by the rose bushes and say, You take care of what's alive, not just what looks pretty. Tessa smiled faintly at the memory. He was the only one who'd ever really seen her. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. You think you won. You didn't. -D quote. Her stomach tightened. Dylan. She didn't respond. She deleted it, turned off her phone, and went back inside. By the time she returned to the dining hall, the champagne was flowing freely. The atmosphere had shifted. Looser, louder, meaner. Evelyn was at the center of it, laughing with two of the board members. When she saw Tessa return, she lifted her glass with a sly smile. Ah, there she is, the new boss herself. Come, darling, sit. We were just talking about your big future. Tessa hesitated, but took her seat. Her mother leaned in, voice just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Tell us, dear, what's your first move as CEO? Or are you waiting for instructions from the grave?" Laughter broke out around the table. Tessa's chest burned. She met her mother's eyes and said quietly, "My first move will be to restore integrity to this company." Grandpa cared about people, not profits. Evelyn smirked. Spoken like someone who's never signed a paycheck in her life. Dylan chuckled. "She's got a heart, Mum. Too bad you can't run a company with feelings." "You'd know all about feelings," Tessa shot back, her tone flat. "Since you sold yours years ago." The table went still. Evelyn's smile faltered for the first time that night. "Excuse me?" she said sharply. "You heard me," Tessa said, her voice shaking but clear. "All you care about is power. You don't even see what it's cost you. Grandpa didn't leave me the company to punish you. He left it to protect it." Dylan slammed his hand on the table. "Watch your mouth, Tessa." "Or what?" she asked. "You'll spill another drink on me?" Gasps rippled through the guests. Evelyn's face twisted, the calm mask slipping. "You ungrateful little brat," she hissed, forgetting the audience. "Everything you have, your schools, your clothes, your food, came from me." "No," Tessa said quietly. "It came from Grandpa." "You just took the credit." Evelyn stood abruptly, pointing at her. "You don't deserve his name. You don't deserve anything." Her voice echoed through the room. People stared. Some turned away, pretending not to see. Others whispered. Dylan pushed his chair back and stood too, laughing like it was all a joke. "You'll never survive out there, Tessa," he said. "You don't have the spine for it." "Maybe not," she said softly. "But I have something you don't." "Oh yeah," he sneered. "What's that?" "Honor." The room fell silent again. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She grabbed Dylan's arm. "We're leaving," she snapped. To the guests, she said sweetly, "Forgive the scene." Grief makes people emotional. They left the hall together, their voices echoing down the corridor. The guests quickly followed, murmuring awkward goodbyes until Tessa was the only one left at the long table. The spilled wine on the white cloth looked like blood. She sat there for a long time, staring at the empty glasses and half-eaten desserts. The chandelier lights above her seemed too bright, too harsh. Finally she stood, gathered her things, and went upstairs. Her room was quiet, except for the faint hum of rain starting again outside. She slipped off her shoes and sank into the chair by her window. She replayed every word from the dinner in her head, her mother's laughter, her brother's smirk, the pitying stares of the guests. They didn't just hate her, they despised her for existing, for being chosen, for being better. Her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Miss Anderson." The voice was low, calm. "Mr. Dale." "Yes," she whispered. "Is everything okay?" "That depends. Are you sitting down?" "I am." He sighed. "Your mother and brother didn't waste time. They've already contacted a forger, she repeated, stunned. For what? Signatures, company transfer forms, board statements. They're planning to fabricate legal ownership of Anderson Holdings and file it under Dylan's name. Tessa's blood went cold. Can they do that? They can try, he said, but they'll fail if we act fast. The trust structure we built is solid. Still, I suggest you prepare yourself. Things may get ugly. Tessa swallowed hard. How ugly? The kind that changes families forever. For a long moment she said nothing. Then quietly, let them come. There was silence on the line, then a faint note of approval in his voice. You sound like your grandfather. That's the goal, she said. He chuckled softly. Good. Then you'll appreciate what I'm about to say next. He didn't just leave you a company, Miss Anderson. He left you a strategy. What do you mean? He knew this would happen. Every clause, every signature, every trust was designed with one purpose, to trap greed. You're not just inheriting a business. You're inheriting a plan. Tessa leaned forward. A plan for what? For justice, he said simply, and for survival. After the call ended, Tessa didn't move for a while. She just stared out the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. Her mind replayed everything. Her mother's smirk, her brother's laughter, the humiliation at dinner, the cruel whisper by the coffin. He should have left it to me. You'll lose it soon enough. Not anymore. She walked to her grandfather's portrait hanging above the fireplace. The frame was dark wood, polished to perfection. His eyes, even in paint, looked sharp, like he knew something she didn't. You always said family tests us, she whispered. Guess I'm about to pass, or fail. She placed her hand gently against the bottom of the frame. I won't let them destroy what you built. I promise her reflection in the glass looked different somehow. Stronger, colder. The soft ding of her phone broke the silence again. A new message from Mr. Dale. It's time. Everything is in motion. Stay quiet, stay calm, and trust no one. She typed back only 2 words. I'm ready. Hours later, long after midnight, Evelyn stood in her study with Dylan pacing behind her. I told you she wouldn't fight, Dylan said, smirking. She's too soft. We'll have the company back in a week. Don't underestimate her, Evelyn snapped. She's quiet, not stupid. Mum, she's Tessa. She can barely handle confrontation, let alone corporate warfare. Evelyn stared at the window, her reflection hard and sharp. You don't understand, she said slowly. That company is mine. It was always mine. I built it beside my father. I made the sacrifices. And then he throws it all away on that ungrateful little girl. So what's the plan? Dylan asked. We file the new documents first thing tomorrow. Once the board sees my name and yours, it's over. She'll have nothing, Dylan grinned. Perfect. Evelyn turned, her voice low, icy. And if she resists, we make sure she regrets it. Down the hall, in her room, Tessa sat awake. The rain had turned to thunder now. Lightning flashed across the dark sky, lighting the edges of her room. She wasn't scared anymore. She was focused. She had seen the worst of them, and survived. Now she was ready to fight. The storm outside cracked again, lighting her face in the window reflection. Her eyes were no longer the eyes of the quiet girl they mocked. They were her grandfather's eyes, calm, sharp, unshaken. She whispered to herself, almost like a vow, Let's play your game, Mother. But this time, I'm the one writing the rules. Her phone buzzed one last time that night. A call from Mr. Dale. She answered immediately. Mr. Dale? Tessa, listen carefully, he said. They've already contacted a forger. I suggest you get ready. She took a slow breath. Her voice was steady when she replied, Let them try. She hung up, turned off the light, and smiled in the dark. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give future to children and women abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing to hitting the subscribe button and turning on your notification bell. Also let us know in the comments where you are watching us from and how this story hit home for you. The morning after the storm, the sky was bright, too bright. The world outside looked clean, fresh, alive. But inside Anderson Holdings, the air was tight with tension. Tessa sat behind her grandfather's old desk, staring at the city skyline. It still felt strange, being in his chair. His office had always smelled like tobacco and old leather. Now it smelled like new paint and nerves. She hadn't slept. Not really. Her thoughts had spun all night, chasing Evelyn's voice through the thunder. We make sure she regrets it. A knock on the door pulled her back. Come in, she said quietly. Mr. Dale entered, sharp as always in his grey suit. He placed a folder on her desk. It's begun, he said. Tessa frowned. What is this? Board meeting minutes. Your mother called an emergency session this morning. Her stomach dropped. Without notifying me? He nodded grimly. She told them it was about restructuring. But the real purpose was to replace you. Tessa opened the folder and read the transcript. Lines of lies stacked neatly on legal paper. Evelyn's name appeared again and again. The company is in disarray. Tessa lacks direction. Our legacy is being destroyed by inexperience. Tessa swallowed hard. She didn't even wait a week. She never would, Mr. Dale said softly. She's already promised the CFO a promotion and bought off 3 directors. They'll vote however she tells them to, and Dylan, he's been charming the press, feeding them nonsense about accounting irregularities. There's already talk of a federal inquiry. Tessa looked up sharply. An inquiry? That's insane. It's a lie, he said, but a very effective one. She leaned back, rubbing her temples. The weight of everything, her grandfather's dream, the trust, the company's future, pressed down hard. What do I do? She asked quietly. For now, Mr. Dale said, nothing. Let them move. Every fraudulent act tightens Clause 17's noose. They just don't know it yet. Tessa stared at him, searching his face. You're sure this will hold? Your grandfather designed it himself. Every loophole closed, every clause locked. But it requires one thing. What's that? Patience. She smiled faintly. That's not exactly my family's strong suit. By noon, the office buzzed with whispers. News headlines started popping up online. Scandal in the Anderson empire? New CEO faces financial allegations. Photos of Tessa appeared on business blogs, paired with words like inexperienced, unstable, and unfit. Her phone rang non-stop. Reporters, board members, even old friends who didn't know what to believe. When she finally picked up one call, it was Dylan. Hey sis, he said cheerfully. You're trending. Congrats. Her grip tightened on the phone. What the hell are you doing, Dylan? Relax. It's just business. You wouldn't understand. You're destroying the company's reputation, Grandpa's reputation. Grandpa's gone, he snapped, and it's time for someone competent to take over. She could almost see his smirk through the phone. You're pathetic, she said. And you're predictable, he replied. You always think being good makes you strong. It doesn't. It makes you weak. The line went dead. Tessa sat there, phone still pressed to her ear, until the screen dimmed. Her hands shook, but her expression didn't. They wanted her to explode, to react, to fight on their terms. Not this time. That afternoon, the board meeting went exactly as Evelyn planned. In a sleek conference room lined with glass, Evelyn stood at the head of the table, smiling with professional grace. Dylan lounged beside her, flipping through fake documents. Ladies and gentlemen, Evelyn began, we are here to correct a mistake. My father built this company with structure, with discipline. But since his passing, we've lost our footing. Poor leadership, reckless spending, declining investor confidence. A murmur of agreement moved around the table. One director hesitated. Mrs. Anderson, are you suggesting your daughter? I'm not suggesting, Evelyn cut in. I'm stating. Tessa is a sweet girl, but she's not ready for this world. She's unstable, emotional. She's running my father's empire into the ground. Dylan smiled at the directors. We're just here to fix things. Keep it in the family, where it belongs. The CFO cleared his throat. And what exactly do you propose? Evelyn opened her folder and slid papers across the table. A transition of control. Effective immediately. I'll take interim leadership until Dylan is confirmed by the board. The CFO scanned the papers. And Tessa? She'll step down, Evelyn said simply, for the good of the company. By 4 p.m. the building felt different. The whispers had grown louder, phones busier, smiles colder. Tessa sat alone in her office, watching the rain start again against the window. A chill ran through her. Mr. Dale called. "They're on their way up," he said. She turned slowly toward the door. "Who?" "Your mother and brother." Tessa's chest tightened. "So it's time." "I'll handle the legal side," Mr. Dale said. "You just keep calm." "I am calm," she said softly. "Good," he replied, "because this is where the game changes." The elevator dinged. Evelyn and Dylan walked in like they already owned the place. Evelyn wore a cream suit and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Dylan trailed behind, carrying a thick folder. "Tessa," Evelyn said sweetly, "we need to talk." Tessa stood, smoothing her jacket. "I figured." Evelyn sat across from her, crossing her legs like it was a social visit. Dylan leaned against the wall, smirking. "This doesn't have to be difficult," Evelyn began. "We've decided to restructure the company, with Dylan as acting CEO. You'll still receive dividends, of course. Consider it compensation for stepping aside gracefully." Tessa blinked. "Gracefully," she repeated. "Yes," Evelyn said. "No press, no mess. It'll all look clean. You can keep your dignity." "My dignity?" Tessa said softly. "You already tried to take that at dinner." Evelyn's smile flickered. "Watch your tone, young lady." Dylan stepped forward, dropping the folder on her desk with a thud. "These are the papers. All you have to do is sign." Tessa glanced down. Her own name was already printed there, forged in neat, familiar handwriting. Her pulse quickened. "You forged my signature." Evelyn tilted her head. "Just making things efficient." "This is illegal," Tessa said quietly. "Oh, please," Evelyn snapped. "You think anyone's going to believe you over me?" "You're a nobody, Tessa. A charity case my father pitied." Tessa stood slowly, meeting her mother's eyes. "Say that again." Evelyn smirked. "You heard me. You were his guilt project. His second chance at being a decent human being after your father died because of you." Tessa froze. "What did you say?" Evelyn stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper, each word deliberate and cruel. "I should have ended you years ago," she said. "Your father would have lived if not for you." The world went silent. For a moment, Tessa couldn't breathe. The air felt heavy, thick. Her father, she had been 8 when he died. A car accident. She'd always believed Evelyn's story that it was unavoidable. Now the truth hit her like ice. Evelyn blamed her. Dylan looked uncomfortable, glancing at his mother. "Mom, enough." "No," Evelyn said, her voice rising. "She should hear it. He was driving you home that night. You were crying, screaming that you wanted to go back. He turned around for you. That's why the crash happened. That's why he's dead." Tessa's knees nearly gave out. She gripped the desk for balance, her vision blurring. Evelyn stepped back, satisfied. "So, you see, dear, everything that's gone wrong started with you. You don't deserve his name, his company, or his legacy." Dylan handed her a pen. "Just sign it, Tess. Don't make this worse." For a long moment, Tessa stared at the papers. Her hand trembled, not from fear, but from fury. Then she picked up the pen. She signed every page. Her voice was calm when she spoke. "There. It's done." Dylan grinned. "You just made it easy, sis." Evelyn smiled, standing to leave. "Smart girl. You'll thank us someday." The door closed behind them, leaving the office cold and silent. Tessa stared at the papers for a long time, her breath uneven. Her hands shook, her heart hurt. But deep inside, beneath the pain, something steady burned. A quiet fire that refused to go out. For a long time after they left, Tessa didn't move. The only sound in the room was the faint ticking of the clock and the low hum of the city outside her window. The papers with her signature lay on the desk like evidence of her own execution. She should have been furious, screaming, breaking things. But she wasn't. Instead, she stood there in the stillness, feeling the shock settle over her like ice. Her mother's words replayed again and again. Your father would have lived, if not for you. 8 years old. That was how old she'd been. She could still remember the sound of the rain, the headlights, the screech of tires, the crash. Evelyn had never hugged her that night, never comforted her, just stared at her like she was something broken. And now she understood why. Tessa sank into her chair, pressing her trembling hands against her face. For a moment she almost couldn't breathe. Then, slowly, the panic ebbed, replaced by something heavier, rage. Not loud, not wild, quiet, sharp, and cold. They had taken her company. They had rewritten her name, and they thought she would just disappear. Number. Her grandfather hadn't raised her to fold, he'd raised her to wait. She straightened, wiping her face, and looked down at the signed documents. Every page was perfectly aligned, every line forged, falsified, and signed under duress. Exactly what Clause 17 had been built for. Her phone buzzed. It was Mr. Dale. She picked it up immediately. Mr. Dale. I know, he said. They were just here. You saw? Security cameras, he replied. I watched the whole thing. They forced you to sign. They didn't hold a gun, but it wasn't a choice either. Good, he said. Tessa blinked. Good. Yes, because you did exactly what you were supposed to. They just triggered Clause 17. There was silence. Then he said, slower this time. Everything is set. The trust activates automatically once fraudulent signatures are filed. They've hung themselves, Miss Anderson. Tessa sat back, the words washing over her. They have no idea, do they? Not yet. By tomorrow, every one of their fake documents will be submitted to the registrar. The moment they hit the system, the trust assumes full control of the assets. Permanently, the company, the accounts, the properties. All of it returns to you. Tessa's breath caught. So, I don't have to fight? Oh, you'll fight, he said. But on your terms. Quietly, legally, and completely. She stared out the window, her reflection pale but steady. I don't even feel relief. I just feel tired. That's normal, Mr. Dale said gently. You've been through war. You just didn't realize it yet. She gave a faint, humorless laugh. It's hard to feel victorious when it's your own family you're destroying. They destroyed themselves, he said. You just gave them the pen. That night, Tessa drove home alone. The city lights blurred against the windshield as rain started again. Her mind was heavy, but focused. Every mile felt like a countdown. When she reached the gates of the estate, she saw Evelyn's car already there, black and sleek, like a predator waiting in the dark. For a moment, Tessa considered driving past, but then she took a slow breath and parked. Inside, she found her mother standing in the foyer, holding a glass of wine like she owned the air itself. Dylan leaned against the staircase, scrolling through his phone. Well, Evelyn said without looking up, I see you signed. I did. Evelyn smiled. Good girl. Maybe you're not as naive as I thought. Tessa dropped her keys on the table. The metallic clatter made both of them look up. Why are you here? She asked quietly. Celebrating, Evelyn said. Dylan's appointment goes live tomorrow morning. The board will confirm it by noon. I thought you'd like to watch how real leadership looks. Tessa tilted her head. You really think this will hold? Evelyn's smile widened. Of course it will. You're out, completely. You can pack up and leave by Wednesday. Wednesday, Tessa repeated softly, as if memorizing it. Yes, Evelyn said. The house, the accounts, everything tied to Anderson Holdings, all reallocated. I even transferred the penthouse lease into Dylan's name. Can't have you squatting on company property. Dylan smirked. Don't take it personal, sis. Business is business. Tessa stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. You've always mistaken cruelty for strength. That's why you'll lose? Evelyn laughed, genuinely amused. Lose? To you? Yes, Tessa said simply. To me. Evelyn rolled her eyes. You really are delusional. Tessa smiled faintly. No, just patient. They left her standing there, alone in the grand hallway. The house felt colder than ever. Tessa walked up the stairs slowly, her heels echoing on the marble. In her grandfather's old study, she stood by the window, watching the rain streak across the glass. She could almost hear his voice in her head again. Deep, steady, full of quiet conviction. Protect what's yours. Trust no signature but your own. She whispered to the dark. I did, Grandpa. Every single one of them signed their own downfall. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Mr. Dale. Paperwork received. Clause 17 activated. The system will process overnight. Tomorrow morning they'll realize everything is gone. Tessa stared at the message for a long time. Then she smiled. Not out of joy, but something colder, deeper. For the first time, she felt in control. She wasn't scared of her mother anymore, or her brother, or what people would say. The Anderson bloodline might be poisoned, but she was going to cleanse it, with truth, with law, and with legacy. She sat at the desk and began typing. A statement to the board, a letter to the press. Calm, professional, unshakable. I am aware of recent rumors. While I will not dignify lies, I will say this. Anderson Holdings was built on integrity, and I intend to keep it that way. Her hands moved faster as the words came. Simple, powerful, confident. By the time she finished, she wasn't trembling anymore. She hit save, leaned back, and exhaled. Tomorrow, Evelyn and Dylan would walk into the office believing they had won. By noon, every bank account, stock and title would revert to the trust. To her. Clause 17 wasn't revenge, it was justice. At the same hour, Evelyn was on a call in her room, pacing in front of the fireplace. Yes, the documents are signed, she said briskly. Everything's in Dylan's name. File them first thing tomorrow. I want it official before she can blink. A pause. Then she added, and make sure her access codes are revoked by morning. Email, bank accounts, corporate card, everything. I want her cut off completely. She hung up, poured another glass of wine and smiled to herself. Finally, she murmured. Finally mine again. Dylan stepped into the room. Mom, are you sure we should be doing this so fast? What if? What if what? She snapped. You saw her. She's done. You think that girl has the brains to fight us? She's weak, Dylan. Always has been. He hesitated. Still, the lawyer, Mr. Dale, he seemed pretty loyal to Grandpa. What if? Evelyn waved her hand dismissively. Old man's sentimental. He's harmless. The next morning came quiet and grey. Evelyn and Dylan arrived at the company building early, their faces glowing with victory. The lobby staff greeted them stiffly, too stiffly, but they didn't notice. Dylan walked ahead, pushing open the office doors. Smell that, Mom? Power Evelyn smiled. Smells like home. They stepped into the executive floor, still laughing, and froze. The large glass wall that used to display Anderson Holdings, CEO Tessa J. Anderson, now showed something else. Anderson Holdings, the Anderson Trust, managed by Tessa J. Anderson. Evelyn blinked. What is this? Dylan frowned. It's wrong. Must be a glitch. The elevator doors opened behind them. Tessa stepped out, calm and poised, dressed in black. Morning, she said simply. Evelyn spun toward her. What the hell did you do? Tessa looked at her with that same quiet smile. You told me I was out by Wednesday. You were right. You're out by Wednesday. Dylan's face went pale. What are you talking about? Mr. Dale appeared from the corner office, holding a folder. His voice was firm. Clause 17, Mrs. Anderson. You and your son filed fraudulent ownership claims. That automatically triggered full forfeiture of all rights and assets. Evelyn's jaw dropped. That's impossible. Quite the opposite, he said. It's binding, legal, permanent. Tessa's eyes met her mother's. You said I'd lose everything. But all you did was hand it back. Evelyn's lips trembled. You tricked us. No, Tessa said. You underestimated me. For the first time, Evelyn had no words. Dylan looked between them, his voice shaking. Mum, what's happening? What's happening, Mr. Dale said calmly, is justice. Evelyn's knees gave out and she sank into a chair, her face drained of colour. Dylan stood frozen beside her. Tessa turned toward the window, her voice soft but clear. You wanted power, Mother. Now you can watch it from the outside. She paused, then looked back at them. By the way, security will escort you out. The trust doesn't permit unauthorized personnel. Evelyn's eyes widened. You can't. I can, Tessa said. And I will. As they were led away, Evelyn's voice echoed down the hall, shrill and broken. You'll regret this, Tessa. You'll regret everything. But Tessa didn't flinch. She stood still, calm, watching them disappear through the glass doors. The office was quiet again. The storm had passed. Mr. Dale placed the folder on her desk. It's over, he said. Tessa nodded slowly. No, she said. It's just beginning. She turned toward the city skyline, the morning light glinting off the glass towers. Her grandfather's legacy was safe, and for the first time, truly hers. 2 days passed like the calm before a storm. Too still, too quiet, too dangerous. The news had gone silent. The board hadn't called. The reporters stopped circling. And that was what made Tessa nervous. She knew her mother. Evelyn Anderson never accepted defeat. She just regrouped. And when Evelyn regrouped, someone always got hurt. Tessa sat in her office early that morning, sunlight cutting across the polished floors. The city looked calm, but her gut told her something was coming. Mr. Dale's voice echoed in her mind from 2 nights earlier. They'll lash out before they understand they've lost. Stay inside. Don't engage until they come to you. He was right. Her family had built their whole lives on control, and now that control was gone. They wouldn't let go quietly. Tessa looked at the clock. 9:12 a.m., right on schedule. The elevator dinged. She turned slowly, expecting maybe a courier, maybe her assistant. Instead, she heard heavy footsteps, too many, too loud. Then came her mother's voice, cold, commanding. Find her! Tessa's chest tightened. The doors slammed open. Evelyn Anderson stepped in first, wearing black heels and fury like a crown. Dylan followed behind her, his face pale but twisted into a smirk. Behind them were 3 men, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark jackets. Thugs. Evelyn pointed at Tessa's desk like it was a crime scene. Drag her out, she said. I don't care if she screams. The men hesitated, unsure. The calm in Tessa's eyes didn't fit the picture of a frightened woman. Go on, Evelyn snapped. She doesn't belong here. One of them stepped forward, but then they froze, all of them, because Tessa wasn't alone. Across the room, seated calmly at the side table, was Mr. Dale. A folder lay open in front of him. The words stamped across the front in bold black letters. The Anderson Trust Activation File. Evelyn's voice faltered. What is this? Mr. Dale stood slowly buttoning his jacket. His tone was polite, almost cheerful. Ah, Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Anderson, right on time. I was just reviewing your most recent filings. Evelyn frowned, trying to recover her composure. What are you doing here? This is a private office. It was, Mr. Dale said smoothly. Until you filed forged ownership documents and attempted to seize assets you don't own. That, unfortunately, made it a legal matter. Dylan laughed nervously. You can't prove anything. Oh, I can, Mr. Dale replied. And I already have. He turned the folder toward them, flipping open a section of neatly organized pages. Clause 17, he said evenly. Your father's masterpiece. It states that any attempt by family members to obtain company control through coercion, fraud, or falsified signatures will result in immediate and permanent forfeiture of all Anderson assets to the named heir. In this case, Miss Tessa Anderson. The room went dead silent. Tessa didn't move. She simply watched as Mr. Dale continued reading, his calm voice slicing through the tension. Furthermore, he went on, Clause 17 mandates the automatic freezing of all accounts and liquidation of non-trust assets pending legal confirmation of fraud. Those actions, he glanced at his watch, should have executed about 10 minutes ago. Right on cue, one of the thug's phones buzzed. He looked down, frowned, then slowly stepped back. Ma'am, he said awkwardly. There's a message from your bank. Says your account's been frozen. Evelyn whipped around. What? The man shrugged helplessly. Says all transactions suspended. Mr. Dale smiled faintly. Ah yes, the wonders of automation. Every joint account, every property deed, every offshore transfer, all now under the control of the Anderson Trust. Dylan's voice cracked. You're lying. I assure you I'm not, Mr. Dale said, lifting his laptop and turning the screen toward them. On it, a live document displayed a series of lines blinking red. Account status, frozen owner, the Anderson Trust. Each one bore the same note at the bottom, Clause 17, forfeiture enforcement executed. Dylan stumbled back a step. No, this can't, you can't. Evelyn's face went white, her mouth working soundlessly. You set us up, she finally spat, turning to Tessa. Tessa's voice was quiet but steady. No, Mother. You set yourselves up. Grandpa just built the net. You think this will last? Evelyn hissed. I'll take you to court. I'll drag your name through every headline until you have nothing left, Mr. Dale interjected calmly. You might want to reconsider that, Mrs. Anderson. He reached into the folder again and slid a slim USB drive across the desk. Every call you made to the forger, every email Dylan sent to the board, every falsified document you filed, recorded, verified, and submitted to the authorities. Evelyn's hand shook as she snatched it up. You're bluffing. Try playing it, Mr. Dale said mildly. It's already been filed with the registrar. I just kept a copy for my records. Dylan's shoulders slumped. Mum. Evelyn ignored him, staring daggers at Tessa. You think this makes you better than me? Tessa met her gaze coldly. No. It just makes me smarter. Evelyn's eyes filled with hate. You have no idea what you've done. Actually, Tessa said, her tone calm and deadly, I know exactly what I've done. I've stopped you from destroying everything Grandpa built. You stole it, Evelyn screamed. You manipulated him into... I didn't manipulate him, Tessa cut in. You did, for years, but he finally saw you for what you are. Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes never wavered. He saw how greed hollowed you out, and he left me the one thing you'll never understand. Integrity. The words hit harder than any slap. For a long moment Evelyn didn't speak. Her jaw tightened, her breath ragged. Then, without warning, she swept the papers off the desk in a burst of fury, sending them scattering across the floor. You think this is over? She snarled. You think you can humiliate me and get away with it? Tessa didn't even flinch. It's already over. Dylan sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Mum, stop. It's done. Evelyn turned on him. Don't you dare talk to me like that. I did this for you. Dylan looked up, his face pale. For me? You dragged me into this. You used my name, my signature, everything. And you were happy to play along, Tessa interrupted quietly. Don't act like you didn't want it. The room fell into a tense silence again. Outside the windows, the city kept moving. Taxis, lights, life, all indifferent to the family tearing itself apart behind glass. Finally, Mr. Dale closed the folder and said, "It's time." Evelyn turned, her voice cracking. "What?" "Security will escort you both out," he said firmly. "Per the trust's terms, you no longer have authorization to enter or conduct any business within Anderson Holdings." "You can't do this to me," Evelyn shouted. "I'm his daughter." Mr. Dale's tone didn't waver. "And that is exactly why Clause 17 exists." Tessa stayed quiet through it all. Her heart was heavy, but her face remained calm. Evelyn's fury didn't scare her anymore. It just looked sad. For the first time, she didn't see her mother as powerful. She saw her as desperate. And that realization hurt more than any insult ever had. The two security officers stepped into the room quietly, wearing the black suits of the company's private team. They didn't need instructions. "Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Anderson." Mr. Dale's voice was formal now. "Please come with us." Evelyn's expression flickered between disbelief and fury. "You can't, you have no right." "Actually, ma'am," said one of the guards, "we do. The order comes directly from the board and the trust administrator." "That's me," Tessa said quietly. Evelyn's head snapped toward her. "You think this makes you powerful? You think this makes you safe?" Tessa held her mother's gaze. "It makes me free." Evelyn lunged forward, her face twisted with anger, but one of the guards gently stepped between them. "Ma'am, please," he said evenly. "You'll regret this," Evelyn screamed. "Both of you will. I'll ruin you in court, I'll—" "Enough," Mr. Dale said sharply. His tone cut through the chaos like a blade. "You don't seem to understand, Mrs. Anderson. The moment you forged those papers, you ended your own argument. The law doesn't take kindly to fraud. You do well to remain silent and wait for counsel." Evelyn froze mid-step, realization creeping in. She looked at him, then at Tessa, and for the first time, truly, she looked afraid. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. The guards stepped forward again. "This way, Mom." Evelyn turned toward Dylan. "Say something. Do something." Dylan didn't move. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes glassy. "It's over, Mom." "Don't you dare give up," she hissed. He shook his head. "You dragged us too far this time." Tessa watched as her brother stood up slowly, his once cocky posture gone. He glanced at her, guilt flickering across his face. For a second, Tessa almost saw the boy he used to be, before greed turned him into his mother's mirror. "Dylan," she said softly. He met her eyes, swallowed hard, and looked away. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Neither did I," she said quietly. "But we don't always get to choose the ending." He didn't reply. He just turned and walked out beside the guards. Evelyn went last, her heels clacking against the marble floor. As she reached the door, she stopped and looked back over her shoulder. Her face was pale now, but her eyes still burned with bitterness. "You think you've won, little girl?" she whispered. "But every empire falls, even yours." Tessa didn't answer. She just watched her mother walk away for what she knew might be the last time. When the door closed, silence filled the room again. Mr. Dale exhaled slowly, adjusting his glasses. "It's done." Tessa nodded, but didn't move. Her whole body felt numb. The words didn't sound like victory. They sounded like an ending. "Are you all right?" he asked. She gave a small, tired smile. "I don't know." He studied her for a moment. "You handled that with grace. Your grandfather would have been proud." Her voice cracked slightly. "He'd probably tell me to stop shaking." Mr. Dale allowed himself a small smile. perhaps. But he'd also say this: "You didn't destroy your family, Tessa. They destroyed themselves." She looked down at the floor. The papers her mother had knocked over were still scattered, symbols of greed and arrogance now reduced to trash. "Do you want me to clear this up?" he asked. "No," she said softly. "Leave it. It's fitting." She walked around the desk, her hand brushing over the polished wood. This was her grandfather's desk, the same one where he used to sit late at night, writing notes, circling numbers, sipping black coffee. Now it was hers. And yet it felt heavier than ever. The hours after that were a blur. Lawyers called, bankers confirmed, journalists emailed, begging for statements. Clause 17 had gone into full effect. Every Anderson asset, every home, car, account, and stock now legally belonged to the trust. Evelyn and Dylan were locked out completely. The official record listed one name as controlling heir and primary executor: Tessa Jane Anderson. By late afternoon, Mr. Dale returned with the final documents. "It's official," he said. "You are now the sole owner of Anderson Holdings and all its subsidiaries." Tessa looked up from her chair. Her face was calm, but her voice low. "I don't feel like I won." "Because you didn't fight for power," he said gently. "You fought for peace." She nodded slowly. "And peace costs everything." "Sometimes," he agreed. He placed another envelope on the desk. "There's something else. Your grandfather left one final condition tied to the trust. It just unlocked automatically." Tessa frowned. "Another condition?" He slid the envelope toward her. "Open it." Inside was a single piece of paper. Her grandfather's handwriting again, sharp and deliberate. "If you are reading this, it means Clause 17 has executed. The company is safe, and my bloodline has finally seen its true colors. You have done what I could not. Protect our name without becoming them. Now use what you have to rebuild what they broke. For others, not for us." The legacy was never about money, Tessa. It was about worth. Beneath the note was a printed confirmation slip. "Incoming wire, $20 million, Anderson Foundation account, active." Tessa blinked, stunned. "20 million? Mr. Dale smiled faintly. "Your grandfather's final reserve. It activates only when the company returns to its rightful hands. It's to fund the Anderson Foundation, a charity under your control." She stared at the page. Her throat tightened. "He planned all of this." "Down to the last penny," Mr. Dale said softly. "He always believed you'd do the right thing." Tessa's eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. She stood and walked to the window, looking down at the city glowing under the early evening light. The skyline shimmered like silver veins, alive, endless, unforgiving. Behind her, Mr. Dale gathered his things. "You should rest. You've earned it." Tessa nodded absently. "I will. Thank you, Mr. Dale." He paused at the door. "Your grandfather told me once that he'd built this company to test character. And you passed, Miss Anderson. Don't forget that." When he left, the silence returned. But it was a different kind of quiet now. Not fear. Not grief. Power. Tessa looked down at the reflection of her own face in the window. For the first time, she saw strength there. Not the loud kind her mother wielded, but something quieter, steadier, harder to break. Her phone buzzed. A text message. "Incoming wire, $20 million, Anderson Foundation account." She stared at it for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. Her voice was soft but certain. "It's time." She turned back toward the desk, picked up the folder marked the Anderson Trust, and placed her grandfather's letter inside. Then she whispered, "You did it, Grandpa." And so did I. Outside, thunder rumbled far in the distance. Not loud, just a soft growl fading into the city's hum. Tessa looked up at the ceiling, the faintest tear catching the light. "I kept your promise. Now I'll keep your purpose." The next morning, headlines exploded across every financial network. Anderson Holdings restructures under new CEO. Evelyn and Dylan Anderson accused of corporate fraud. Heiress Tessa Anderson launches foundation with $20 million trust. Reporters filled the sidewalks, cameras flashing as she arrived at the office. She didn't stop for interviews. She didn't need to speak. She walked through the front doors with calm confidence, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. The staff rose as she passed, not out of fear, but out of respect. In her office, she paused by her grandfather's portrait. The sunlight hit it just right, catching the small engraved plaque beneath. Integrity above all. She smiled faintly. Looks like I finally understand what that means. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Mr. Dale. Clause 17, executed successfully. All records clean. The company is yours. Completely. She set the phone down, her fingers resting on the desk. Not mine, she whispered. Ours. The city stretched out before her, towers of glass built on ambition and greed. But in that moment, Tessa Anderson felt something rare in a world like hers. Peace. She had won without becoming them, and that, she thought, was the real inheritance. For a week, the world couldn't stop talking about her. Heiress Tessa Anderson saves family empire from corruption. New CEO restores legacy with shocking $20 million charity trust. From scandal to redemption, the Anderson rebuild. Every magazine cover, every business podcast, every online headline had her name. But behind the success, Tessa barely slept. Power wasn't peace. It was pressure. Quiet, relentless pressure. And now that she had everything, she had to decide what to do with it. The company was running smoothly again. Stocks had stabilized. Employees were returning to work with cautious optimism. But she knew it wouldn't last long. Not while Evelyn and Dylan were still out there. She didn't have to wait long for the first strike. That morning, her assistant, Claire, knocked on her office door holding a tablet. You'll want to see this, she said hesitantly. Tessa looked up from her papers. What is it? Claire handed her the screen. The headline read, Ex-CEO Evelyn Anderson accuses daughter of fraud and elder manipulation. Tessa's stomach tightened. The article quoted Evelyn word for word. My daughter twisted a dying man's will for her own gain. My father was old, confused, and vulnerable. She isolated him, turned him against his family, and stole everything we built. Below it, a smaller line read, Sources confirm new lawsuit being drafted against Anderson Holdings CEO. Tessa put the tablet down, exhaling slowly. Of course, she murmured. Claire shifted uneasily. Should I have PR issue a statement? Tessa shook her head. No, not yet. She knew Evelyn's playbook. Every time Evelyn lost control, she'd run to the public. She'd weaponize sympathy, twist the truth, and drown people in lies until they forgot where it started. But this time, it wouldn't work. Tessa turned to the window, the city gleaming below. She's not getting another war, she said softly. Not on my time. 2 days later, another attack came, this one from Dylan. A video surfaced online, grainy, edited, fake. It showed pieces of old security footage spliced together to make it look like Tessa had met with lawyers months before her grandfather's death, supposedly plotting the trust in secret. The caption read, Proof Tessa Anderson manipulated inheritance before grandfather's passing. Within hours, the clip spread everywhere. Comments flooded in. She planned it. So much for being innocent. Just another rich liar covering her tracks. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing, calls from journalists, the board, even old friends asking if it was true. Mr. Dale arrived that afternoon with a grim expression. They're desperate, he said, setting his briefcase down. I traced the upload. Dylan leaked it anonymously through a proxy server, but it's already viral. Tessa sat behind her desk, quiet. Then we won't delete it. Mr. Dale frowned. What do you mean? We don't hide, she said. We outshine. He studied her, then slowly nodded. You sound like your grandfather. Tessa gave a faint smile. I hope so. That evening, she called her assistant. Claire, I want to schedule a press conference. Tomorrow morning. The entire board, media, and staff. Everyone. Claire blinked. Tomorrow? That soon? Yes. If they want to see who I really am, I'll show them. The next morning, the Anderson Holdings atrium was filled to capacity. Reporters, cameras, flashing lights, all waiting. The board members stood near the front, whispering among themselves, guilt still fresh in their eyes. Some of them had betrayed her weeks ago. Others had simply stood by in silence. Now they were back, faces pale, hoping to align themselves with the winner. Tessa stepped onto the stage wearing a black suit. Simple, clean, no jewelry except for her grandfather's old watch. The same one he'd worn to every board meeting for 40 years. She didn't use a teleprompter. She didn't need notes. She just took a breath and began to speak. Good morning, she said, her voice steady, carrying across the room. There's been a lot said about me lately. Some of it true, most of it not. But none of that matters. The cameras clicked. Reporters leaned forward. What matters, she continued, is why this company exists in the first place. Anderson Holdings was never about numbers or stock prices. It was about people. My grandfather didn't build an empire. He built homes, schools, and opportunities for those who didn't have any. She paused, scanning the crowd. I watched him treat every janitor with the same respect as every investor. That's the legacy I inherited. Not the money, not the power, but the responsibility. A murmur of approval rippled through the audience. She smiled faintly, then said, Today, I'm making that legacy official. I'm proud to announce the creation of the Anderson Foundation Initiative, a permanent trust that will dedicate millions every year to community education, affordable housing, and veteran support. In his name and in his spirit. The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause. This company was built to last beyond greed, she said over the noise. My grandfather built lives, not empires. The applause grew louder, thunderous now. Cameras flashed like lightning. Even some board members wiped tears from their eyes. At the back of the room, Mr. Dale smiled quietly. Tessa stood there, her heart pounding but her voice calm. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't defending anything. She was creating something. And it felt right. Across the city, in a dark sedan parked outside a diner, Evelyn slammed her fist against the dashboard. She's turning this into sainthood while we're starving, she screamed. Dylan flinched. Calm down, Mom. Calm down? She shrieked. She's on every channel talking about morality while our accounts are frozen. You let her take everything. Dylan turned away, muttering, You're the one who started this. What did you say? She snapped. He looked back at her, eyes tired and red. You heard me. Maybe Grandpa was right. Maybe greed did eat us alive. Evelyn stared at him in disbelief. Don't you dare take her side. I'm not, he said quietly. I'm just done fighting a battle that's already lost. Evelyn's hands shook. Then you're no son of mine. Maybe that's for the best, he muttered, pushing the car door open and walking away. She sat there alone, trembling, staring at her reflection in the windshield. For the first time in her life, Evelyn Anderson looked small. That night, Tessa returned home to the mansion, or what was left of it. Most of the family portraits were gone. The house felt hollow, echoing with memories that no longer hurt as much as they used to. She went straight to her grandfather's study. The air smelled faintly of old books and cedar, just like before. On the desk sat one final envelope, small, sealed, untouched until now. She sat down, hands trembling slightly, and opened it. Inside was a single note written in his familiar handwriting. You passed the test, Tessa. Keep the company. Keep your soul. Her throat tightened. She pressed the note to her chest and closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt at peace. The following week began calm, too calm. The press conference had changed everything. Public opinion had shifted hard in Tessa's favor. Investors returned. Employees rallied. Donations poured into the new foundation, and for a brief moment, it seemed like the storm had finally passed. But storms like Evelyn never die quietly. Mr. Dale arrived at Tessa's office late one evening, his face grave. "We have a situation," he said. Tessa put down her pen. "What kind of situation?" He hesitated. "The kind you warned me about." Evelyn and Dylan just made another move. Tessa's chest tightened. "What did they do this time?" He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder marked Confidential. "They tried selling internal company data, trade contracts, client lists, future development plans to a competitor, Meridian Industries. The deal was brokered through an intermediary last night." Tessa felt the air leave her lungs. "Please tell me you're joking." "I wish I were," Mr. Dale said. "Luckily, Meridian's CEO called me this morning. He said he'd been approached by representatives of the Anderson family offering confidential materials for cash. He recognized the name immediately and contacted me." Tessa leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. "They're desperate." "They're criminals," Mr. Dale corrected. "And now we have proof." He placed a small flash drive on her desk. Every email, every recorded call, enough evidence to bury them in court. Tessa didn't speak for a long moment. When she finally did, her voice was soft. "Do it." "You're certain?" "Yes. I gave them every chance to walk away." "They chose this," Mr. Dale nodded. "I'll handle it personally." He turned to leave, but Tessa stopped him. "Mr. Dale, thank you." For everything, he gave a faint, tired smile. "You earned this ending, Miss Anderson." "Not them." It happened 2 days later. News broke in the morning. Former Anderson executives arrested for corporate espionage. Mother and son caught selling company data in desperate scheme. Tessa didn't even need to read the details. She already knew. By noon, security footage leaked. Evelyn and Dylan being escorted out of a downtown hotel in handcuffs. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Evelyn's expression was pure venom, even as she stumbled under the weight of the spotlight. The same spotlight she used to love. Inside her office, Tessa watched in silence as the footage played on the muted TV. Claire stepped in quietly. "Do you want me to turn it off?" Tessa shook her head. "No, let it play on the screen," a reporter shouted. "Mrs. Anderson, any comment on the charges?" Evelyn turned, her face twisted with rage. "She's no Anderson. She's a fraud. She's a thief." The camera zoomed in, her eyes wild, desperate, broken. Tessa's voice was quiet. "You were wrong, Mother." Claire frowned softly. "Mom?" Tessa's gaze stayed on the screen. "I'm the only one who ever was." The following evening, she visited the company's main headquarters. The building was quiet, the city outside glowing with the soft hum of night. She walked through the halls alone, past portraits of her grandfather, past framed newspaper clippings of the company's early days. She paused by the grand balcony overlooking the skyline, her grandfather's favorite view. He used to say, "You don't look down from power, Tessa. You look out." Now she understood what he meant. She stepped out onto the balcony, the wind cool against her face. Below, the city lights stretched endlessly, alive and restless, just like the man who had built the foundation she now stood on.